Hello and welcome to a new video. I hope everybody is doing well. Today's video is a recap of the books that I read in January. I read 5 books in January and I thought I would share what I read and what I thought about them. This is going to be spoiler free because yeah, I prefer spoiler free to spoiling things for people. Basically it's if you haven't read the book and you're interested, then yeah, I just want to keep it spoiler free because that's what I like when I'm reading or watching these kind of videos, etc. So let's get started. So I will link below my video because I don't do a January TBR, I've done a January to April TBR because there are quite a few books on there and I don't know how many books I'm going to read in a month, although I'm kind of getting an idea of how many, but I just thought if I did like a quarter it would just be easier to say that these are the books I'm aiming to read between January and April. So the first books that I read were Storm and Fury and Rage and Ruin by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It is a trilogy and the third book is out in hardback form, I think, but not in paperback. So obviously because I have the paperbacks, I want the paperback for the third book. So that's not out until June, which is annoying because I want to know what happens. But I can wait, I still have loads of other books to read. But yeah, Storm and Fury, I really enjoyed reading these books. It's basically about this girl called Trinity who is a human and she lives among these community of wardens. I forgot what they were called. This community of wardens who are basically, as the word suggests, wardens to between the obviously supernatural world and the human world. They basically protect the humans from demons because there are demons living among the humans in this universe, as well as angels or celestials. And basically Trinity lives with these wardens. There's something not quite right about her. She has some kind of secret that we kind of don't learn until the end of the book what that is, but she is a lot stronger than normal humans. And she basically trains with these wardens, and at some point there's these attacks that are going on which they're all getting worried about, that these some of these upper level demons which don't normally do this kind of thing are basically attacking different communities of the wardens. And there's this big attack that happens and something happens to one of Trinity's friends, and the story kind of goes from there without giving too much away. But Trinity also meets another warden from another community, and she's got this sort of strange kind of sense of him, and she seems to be quite drawn to him. And the kind of, in the first book, the relationship between the two is very sort of offish. She can't quite figure him out, he can't quite figure her out, but there's just something there. And it's building, basically. I really enjoyed reading this book. It basically gives you an insight into what Trinity's character is like. It introduces Zane, and yeah, it's just, a lot happens in it, but it doesn't get started until the end. And I think out of both of these, the second book is my favourite so far. Which leads us on to the second book. So I read this one immediately afterwards, and this one I will read the synopsis for you and I'll give you as much, it's not too spoilery, but it's obviously going to be a little bit spoilery because it's giving you a synopsis for the second book. If you don't want to know about this book because you're intrigued and you want to read the first one, I would skip ahead, and I'll try and put a timestamp on here to the next book. So the synopsis for this one is: half angel Trinity and her bonded gargoyle protector Zane have been working with demons to stop the apocalypse while avoiding falling in love. The harbinger is coming, but who or what is it? All of humankind may fall if Trinity and Zane can't win the race against time as sinister forces gather. As tensions rise, they must stay close together and patrol the DC streets at night, seeking signs of the Harbinger, an entity that is killing wardens and demons with no seeming rhyme or reason. But as deaths pile up and they uncover a plot including the local high school and endangering someone dear to Zane, Trin realises she's being led, herded, played for some unknown end. As anger builds and feelings spiral out of control, it becomes clear that the rage may be the ruin of them all. Now this book gets going. It's the relationship and the dynamic between, sorry, my cat is just rubbing on everything. The relationship and the dynamic between Trinity and Zane is, I love it. I've never laughed so much with books before. It introduces, because I can't remember, I think at the end of this book is when it all happens. So I think the second book is when they introduce, yes, the second book is when, I don't know, if I'm wrong I'm sorry, but the second book introduces Roth and, crap, what's her name? Layla, Roth and Layla, and I love their characters as well. Like, Roth is awesome, and in my head, if I could pick two people to play Roth and Layla, it would be Tom Ellis from Lucifer, and again, sorry, the lady that plays Eve, even though she has brown hair, but she could always dye it. But yeah, I've never laughed so much out loud with a book. It's just very quippy and just my kind of humour. And I love the relationship between Zane and Trinity. It's building, it's getting more, you know, what's the word? Tension and forbidden love and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then I found out that there is actually a set or a series that's set before this, which actually tells the story of Zane, Layla and Roth, which I really want to read now. So I'm hoping to get those books soon, but I don't think it would ruin anything if you did end up starting with this book. It just means that you know about these characters, so when you do start reading the previous series, I guess, you already know these characters, but then you're getting to know them even more and learn more about their story. But yeah, I loved reading these. I gave them 4 out of 10. It was, let's say 4.5 out of 10 for these, because this one, it was just getting started, you were getting to know, so it was building up. This one, yeah, is a very close to 5 stars, but 4.5 because it's just, Trinity is quite arrogant and she doesn't listen, so she's obviously still quite naive as well about the world around her and stuff, because she's been living in the compound her entire life, so she doesn't know much about the real world outside. So it kind of didn't get the 5 stars because at some point she was quite annoying. But yeah, definitely recommend reading these if you haven't already. So after reading those two, obviously I have to wait for the 3rd book, but I am okay with that. So I decided to read the Six of Crows duology, and I was a bit skeptical going into this. Oh, this is the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo, sorry. But yeah, I was a bit skeptical about reading these books because it said it was about a heist, and I am purely fantasy, magical fae, love story kind of thing. So with a heist in it, I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure about this. But I really enjoyed this series. I loved it. I've already watched the Shadow and Bone series on Netflix, so they kind of, even though Shadow and Bone is completely separate from Six of Crows. They incorporated it into the TV show, so going into this book I kind of had in my head the characters in there, like Kaz, Jesper and Inej, and so I didn't feel like I already knew them, but I knew going in I pictured them from the show basically, which sometimes I guess could be a bad thing, but I didn't mind it. But obviously you get to know these characters more, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is basically the biggest heist that they have ever done, and the characters are very they're obviously, it's a criminal underworld, so you've got that kind of balance between what you know is right and going over the line as such. I hope that makes sense. But I did, you know, I was endeared toward the characters. Sorry, I know my reviews are quite bad. I don't know why I do these videos sometimes. But let's read the synopsis for you. So, criminal prodigy, I cannot say the word. Criminal prodigy Kaz Brekker has been offered a chance at a deadly heist. Break into the Ice Court, a military stronghold that's never been breached, and retrieve a hostage whose knowledge could change Grisha magic forever. To succeed would mean riches beyond Kaz's wildest dreams, but can he pull it off? A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, and a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. 6 dangerous outcasts, 1 impossible heist. Together they might just be unstoppable if they don't kill each other first. So yeah, I really enjoyed reading this. It was very fast paced, and edgy, quippy, and you were rooting for them. Even though they were doing something illegal, you were rooting for them to win in the end, but the cause was kind of justified as to why they were doing it. Kaz in this book, or in this series, is just a lot more ruthless than what I remember seeing on screen, and you can't help but sort of love-hate him, and I think my favourite characters in the book was probably Nina and Jesper. I liked their story because again they featured that in the Shadow and Bone season 1, and obviously I like Kaz, Jesper and Inej, and then there's also Willen as well, I think it is. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading this, and as soon as I finished it I was definitely wanting to pick up the second one, which is Crooked Kingdom. So Crooked Kingdom, let's talk about that. Again, there's probably going to be a bit of spoilers in this, so I'll try and put a timestamp if you haven't read the first book and you don't want to know about the second book. Put a timestamp next to the next book that I read. So Crooked Kingdom, it's a bit thicker than the last one. Kaz Brekker and his crew have pulled off a heist so daring even they didn't think they'd survive. But instead of divvying up a fat reward, they're fighting for their lives. Double-crossed and badly weakened, the crew is low on resources, allies and hope. As old rivals and new enemies descend on Ketterdam to root out the secrets of the Yerdaparam, a dangerous substance capable of altering the very fabric of Grisha magic, Kaz's cunning and his team's fragile loyalties are tested to their limit. A war will be waged within the city's dark and twisting streets, a battle for revenge and redemption that will decide the future of magic and fate of the world. This was just as good as the first book. I really enjoyed it. It was very fast paced, and the only thing that didn't give them a 5-star was that a lot of the time something would happen, you'd think it was good, and then they'd get knocked back down. And it happened quite a few times, which, you know, you kind of get that in movies and TV shows. You got to get knocked down to then get back up kind of thing. But it happened too much for me and it was quite annoying. But what I did like was some of the twists in this, and just the way that, you know, the heistness of it all. It kept me on my toes. There was one part in here that I was just devastated about. I was not expecting it. Maybe I should have been, but again, like I said before, I am the fantasy romanticist kind of reader, so I like the love story. But yeah, I was just not happy about that. And I don't know if we're going to see that in the season 2 of Shadow and Bone, but we shall see. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's just that kind of didn't give it the 5-star that it could have gotten. So I would say, again, this was probably 4-star and this would have been 4.5-star. Although saying that, this could have been 4.5-star too, because the ending of this book was good. It was good. It had that twist at the end as well, but just before the twist, how it all happened was just like, oh my god, to see that on screen would be pretty awesome. So yeah. Sorry if my review isn't that great, articulate or vague or whatnot, but the last book that I read in January was Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel, which was written by no author. Written by A.W. Jantha, based on the screenplay by Mick Garris and Neil Cuthbert, story by David Kirshner and Mick Garris. So yeah, the first part of this book is basically Hocus Pocus, the best Halloween movie in my opinion that we all know and love. So it basically is telling the story, and then the second is the sequel to Hocus Pocus, which takes place after the events of the first book / movie. So we all know, well, most of us know the story of Hocus Pocus, which is basically about these 3 witches who did something bad, got caught, but in being sentenced to death for being caught for what they did, they cast a spell that said basically if on All Hallows Night or All Hallows Eve, if someone lights the black flame candle, we will come back, although they didn't say that in the incantation. But yeah, someone will basically summon them back from the dead, and that is what happens in 1998, 3, hold on, it tells you. 1993, somebody lights the black flame candle, the witches come back, and all manner of hijinks ensue. And I think what didn't, I gave this a 3-star because for me, I found that in the beginning, so in the movie, it gives you the back story of how the present day comes into play. So it shows you the Sanderson sisters back in what was it, 1693 in Salem. So in the movie it shows you all of that, then, you know, them getting caught for what they did, and then they basically are sentenced to death, and then we move on to 1993 present day. In the book it flip-flops between 1693 and 1993, which I didn't like. I also think because I knew the story as well, I kind of just wanted to not read it. I almost DNF'd this, like, do not finish. But I persevered because I wanted to read the sequel, see what it was about. So yeah, I didn't like that they flitted between the past and the present, but I kind of get why they would have done it in book form. one thing that was cool was reading more. Sorry, my cat again is... What are you doing? Being a book, you can describe more and go into things more. Hi. She's such a nuisance. Yeah, you can go a bit more in depth into the story and into the character. So we kind of... I think also there are some scenes in here that we didn't see in the movie that could have been deleted scenes, so that was kind of interesting as well. So when Max is at Alison's party and they say let's go to the Sanderson house, there is basically a scene between there and the house of them walking to it and how they get to the house as well, and so you get to know a bit more information there, which I thought was kind of cool, so I liked that. But then moving on to the sequel, I did enjoy reading that. It basically is set, let's see, it's set so many years later. We have adult Max and Alison and Danny, and about Max's 17-year-old daughter Poppy and her friends, I think it's Travis and Isabella. And basically Isabella is in school. We'll go into it a bit more. Max is a teacher at her school. Her mum is a lawyer, Alison, and so she kind of lives with the history of what happened back in 1993 with her parents and aunt Danny. And she's not told anyone about it. She's only told Travis, who's her best friend. And so every Halloween she hates it because her parents, they don't talk about Halloween. They're very, very precious about it, very protective of her, especially at that time of year, which is understandable. So she just wants Halloween to be over. But for some reason that year her parents want to throw a Halloween party. And so she, Isabella is like a new friend. Sorry to keep kind of jumping here. But so you've got the trio, you've got basically Travis, Isabella and Poppy. Isabella's kind of been on the outside wanting to come into their circle kind of thing. And so Poppy tells Isabella the secret that Travis already knows about, which is what happened back in '93 with her parents. And basically from there it kind of goes to the party that her parents are holding for Halloween, and then she can't take it all because you've got, what's her name, is it Jessica? I can't remember her name. Katie, sorry. But you got Katie, who is the popular girl in school, and she's also a bit of a bully, and she's actually the daughter of the principal, who is Jay from the first book / movie, who's the bully. And is it Jay? Yeah, Jay. So she's quite mean to Poppy, and she overhears Poppy when she's telling Isabella about her story, and so she somehow gets involved in all of this. And then, yeah, of course, as you know it, they somehow accidentally bring back the Sanderson sisters, and it's just another night of hijinks again, trying to basically put them back where they came from. And it's actually done quite well, especially for modern day, and it's a race against time. So basically the synopsis is 25 years later, Max and Alison's 17-year-old daughter Poppy finds herself face to face with the Sanderson sisters in all their sinister glory. That's a lot of S's. When Halloween celebrations don't quite go as planned, it's a race against time as Poppy and her friends fight to save her family and all of Salem from the witch's latest vile scheme. So yeah, there you go. They got to try and put the witches back in hell, and it's really good because some old characters from the original come back and help and get to learn some new things as well. And obviously we all know they saved the day. One thing I wasn't that keen on about this was that it just went wrong a lot in this book. Like they couldn't catch a break, and it was just so annoying, which is why I gave it a 3-star, because obviously 1, I didn't like the way the first story was set out, and then 2, yeah, just everything going wrong all the time was just very frustrating to read, especially at the very end, because you think to yourself, how are you going to get out of this? Like, how are you going to basically save the day, kind of thing. Spoiler alert, they do save the day. But yeah, that is what I thought of Hocus Pocus and the sequel, the all-new sequel. I would recommend reading it if you are a fan of the film. It is one of those where I don't know if I would read it again, but I do like the book. The cover is pretty cool. You know, you've got the Sanderson sisters on there. But yeah, so those were the books I read in January. What did you guys think? Have you read any of these books? Do you have the same opinion as me? Do you think any of these are interesting to you and you'd like to read them? If so, then I'll put links to the books below. It is an affiliate link, so if you do click, I do get some little rewards for it. But yeah, they will be below if you are interested in reading them, because I can recommend these books to read. And yeah, I would recommend Hocus Pocus to read as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am kind of worried that it is not good and I've basically waffled and not made sense. But if you did enjoy it and it did make sense, give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!